UFC 256, Figueiredo versus Moreno. We have 11 fights on this card. A lot of really good fights in store for us. A lot of pretty close fights, I would say, as well, including the main prelim that we have here, Cup Swansons versus Daniel Pineda. But in our usual fashion, boxing MMA picks, welcome to our page. It is Harris and Zan giving you our picks for UFC 256, Figueroa versus Moreno. We're starting with the undercard. Let's go into fight number one. We have Chase Hooper versus Peter Barrett. Chase Hooper, we see, just came off of his first loss, I should say, in his most recent fight. What do we have to say about these guys? I would say for Peter Barrett, what I noticed from watching footage with him, a southpaw fighter, boxing, kickboxing, I feel like he has some pretty good movement in the ring as well. Cuts the ring off pretty good. I thought his clinch was decent from what I was seeing on the cage. And specifically on the cage, I saw a pretty decent body lock as well. We saw what happened in this fight against Yusuf Zalal. Almost kicked his head off. Some ground and pound there as well. But he survived that. He survived that. He, of course, went on to lose the fight, but he did survive that moment. And whenever you see a fighter survive that moment, you have to ask yourself, okay, this fighter has heart. This fighter may have a chin as well. This fighter has survival instinct. So that's an important X factor, I feel, to consider with Peter Barrett. And, what can I think from a weakness perspective? I didn't see the best takedown defense from him. I feel like he can be controlled on top at times. Although I have seen him scramble, try to change position on the bottom. But, I also don't really see him completing his takedowns either when he kind of gets that clinch work on in the cage. Now, when we're talking Chase Hooper, we know exactly what we're getting with Chase Hooper, a super grapple heavy attack, not the best stand up at this point. He leaves his chin up, pretty slow in his striking. That chin is kind of questionable. We saw what Caceres was able to do to him multiple times in that fight. And he's a grappler, right? So he's very comfortable off of his back as well. What I will say about this fight, and then I'm going to ask for your opinion in a moment, what I will say about this fight is that regardless of what happens, I don't think these odds are worth it for Chase Hooper. I have a hard time even calling this a dog or a pass. It's going to be a question of whether Hooper can take Barrett down. I feel, like I mentioned, Barrett doesn't really, or kind of allows himself to get controlled on top, I should say. So if Hooper gets him down, maybe there goes the round, if not the fight itself. So it's going to be a question of whether Hooper can get Barrett down onto the ground or not. And again, we know they're both grapplers or as opposed to wrestlers, so to speak. So it's not like we're going to see an active takedown happening in this match. In terms of the feet, if this stays on the feet, Barrett might have a chance. Like I said, Chase Hooper, very green when it comes to his stand-up. And I think a big X factor is going to be, how does Hooper react after his first loss? Does he come out better than he's ever been, or does he kind of come to reality in terms of his early hopes in the UFC, because of course his career is very young at this point. I'm going to go with a very reluctant pick here. I'm going to pick Chase Hooper, but like I said, I don't love these odds at all. I don't necessarily love a dog or pass situation as well. So I'm gonna give it a very reluctant pick for Chase Hooper. How about yourself?
Okay, so I'm with you on a lot of those points. Barrett is not good with takedowns. He gives up takedowns a lot. But he got that nickname. What's his name? Slippery Pete. Yeah, Slippery Pete, because he gets out of submission. So I know Chase is going to get him on the ground. He wants him on the ground. I think UFC gave Chase a fighter that is very vulnerable on the ground. Chase definitely should win this fight, but I agree that he should not be on every single parlay. I think this could be a killer to people's parlays this week if you have him on every single one of your parlays. So yeah, Chase is supposed to win this fight. I think it's closer than the odds indicate. I give Barrett a really good chance. I think Barrett keeps his standing. Barrett just survives even the first round on the ground. The second round, Chase is not going to have that energy, the cardio to push that pace. He does have good cardio, but as you know, as the fights go on with these grapplers, it's harder for them to get their grappling going once the cardio kicks in. So Barrett, he can go the 3 rounds. He survived. He's a fighter. There's a good chance he pulls off the upset on these really nice odds for Barrett to win. Um, I'm not betting this fight personally, but if I have to pick someone, I got to go with Chase having that ground advantage that could finish the fight at any point in this fight. So once he gets to the ground, that could be it. He's good with chokes. He's good with just getting the full mount, just punching away these little pitter patter punches, not causing a lot of damage, but enough damage for the ref to step in and stop the fight. So because Chase, I feel, has the ability to stop the fight there. Again, I think Barrett is a super live underdog. I might even throw a couple dollars on Barrett winning this fight. But as far as this show goes, I'll take Chase Hooper to win this. Again, I don't feel comfortable. I don't like the odds, but I like his advantages on the ground. But again, if I have to make a bet here, I might go with Barrett, like a little small punt on Barrett, because those odds are too high, man.
Yeah, agreed. Let's move on to fight number 2. If you didn't like the odds for Chase Hooper, we're going to have a very interesting conversation about Tecia Torres versus Sam Hughes. Now, I studied this fight very much before I looked at the odds. When I looked at Sam Hughes, what I saw from her, boxing, kickboxing, a pretty good boxing stance, a lot of good striking defense, good movement in the ring, some clinch work as well. Again, I saw that on the cage. And I like that overhand right that she throws. She has a lot of accuracy in her punches. She uses her range. I know she's not the tallest fighter, but especially being the taller fighter here, 5'5" versus 5'1", she definitely extends out on that jab. She has a lot of boxing IQ as well in terms of controlling her range. And, she throws the 1-2 to the body for that further distance control. And we know against someone like Tecia Torres, who's throwing a lot of kicks, that could definitely be a factor there. I feel like she makes pretty decent use of that calf kick as well, just further analyzing her striking game, especially that low inside kick, or inside low kick, I should say. And I mean, again, usually she's leading that battle of control. Usually she's sort of leading the eye test in terms of when you ask yourself who is winning this fight, who is fighting from the center of the octagon, who is upholding their cardio, who continues at a good pace. And she has been 5 rounds before. So, I look at Sam Hughes and I see a lot of skill in her. And if I'm not mistaken, this is her UFC debut. Very tough opponent in Tecia Torres. But, she is somebody, win or lose, that could definitely have a future in the UFC for sure, in kind of maybe the middle rankings of this division. Talking about Tecia Torres a bit, I think the best way to maybe analyze Tecia Torres is almost strictly based off of her most recent fight versus Brianna Van Buren. We know that she's been in the UFC for quite some time, 6 years. We see 11-5 as the record, but her losses have been to, of course, the highest level of fighters. Again, I mean, she's a kickboxer, right? She throws a lot of kicks, pretty good MMA striking at this point, or at least on display in that Brianna Van Buren fight. And, she throws a lot of combinations, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strikes in a row. I feel she moves pretty well on her feet. And, she throws a lot of strikes from unique angles, including the kicks, right? Again, I feel she has pretty good lateral movement as well. I think the takedown defense is decent enough. I mean, we saw Brianna Van Buren could not really take her down. When she did, she couldn't really keep her down. But I think the biggest factor in this fight is that Tecia Torres is a fighter who can push the pace and who can pressure her opponents with her combos. Cardio definitely is no issue at all with her. And she keeps her head forward at times. So possibly that could leave her vulnerable in any sort of striking battle. But when I was thinking about this fight, I was thinking 2 very skilled fighters, 2 fighters that definitely check a lot of boxes when it comes to what their game includes. But one thing I noticed from Hughes is that she is able to be outstruck at times when you push that pace on her. Looking back at some of her LFA footage, watch that fight versus Demopoulos. At times, she was being outstruck there. And again, we saw what Torres did to Van Buren with the combos and pushing the pace. So as much as I feel this fight is a 50-50 in some ways, I do feel like Tecia Torres is sort of on a new high in terms of her opportunity within the UFC, coming off of that win, how she did it, and sort of the weaknesses that I noticed in Sam Hughes's game. And then I looked at the odds, and then I saw minus 650, and I said, boy, oh boy, this is not worth it at all. So I'm going to echo kind of the same sentiment with Chase Hooper here. I'm probably staying away from this fight. I might even put some money on Sam Hughes as the underdog, because I do feel in some ways this is a 50-50 fight. But for the sake of the show, I do think the winner of this fight will be Tecia Torres. And I think it'll be because she pushes the pace too much and she outstrikes Sam Hughes on the feet.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. This is a big letdown. Tecia Torres was supposed to face Angela Hill, but this new girl looks pretty good. I looked at some footage here. She does have some decent striking. She can move her head a bit, but Tecia Torres to me is too fast.
Agreed.
She's too fast. It's too fast, and she's gonna. I think Tecia has a better striking. I think so. Agreed. I think Tecia will even mix in some takedowns. She will have the power in this fight. I'm comfortable with Tecia taking the win here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she should get it done. Make it short and sweet.
Yeah, just don't love the odds on that one. Let's go on to fight number 3. In that case, we have Gavin Tucker versus Billy Quarantillo. We see Billy Quarantillo there, of course, is the taller fighter at 5'10" versus Gavin Tucker at 5'6". How do you feel about this fight? This is going to be an interesting one as well.
This is a really good fight. Now, looking at Billy Quarantillo, he has a bit of he has some wrestling. He's good in the jiu-jitsu game, but he likes to box. He likes to run, march his opponents down, has that Terminator vibe. One thing I've noticed, though, which I didn't like with Quarantillo, is a lot of his fights, he's getting kind of handled a bit, or he's losing. He's on the losing end. And then, in most of these fights, he comes back and finishes the fight strong or finishes the fight. So he did that against
or Carlisle.
He did it Camilla Kirk on the Contender Series. Kirk was looking really good, and then he turned it around. He did it, with Spike Carlisle. Even the Kyle Nelson fight. Like, Kyle Nelson started really strong, and then later in that first round, Quarantillo started piling it on. So he's the type of guy that he allows himself to go down in fights, but he does have this super cardio that, and that's probably why he's the favorite, because these performances he's putting out there, he's looking really good. He's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 fight win streak right now. So I can see why a lot of people like him here. His opponent, Gavin Tucker, he's been in the UFC for a while, Canadian fighter. He beat Justin James, he beat Sung Woo Choi, lost to Rick Glenn. So the Rick Glenn fight, that's the fight that you really got to watch. That's the fight where Rick Glenn kind of pushed Tucker to the edge. Tucker couldn't get him to the ground. Glenn had the length like Quarantillo has. Tucker tried to get it down, lost a lot of cardio, had a cardio dump. Glenn beat him down. But in this fight with Quarantillo, I don't think it's going to be the exact same type of thing here. I think Billy Quarantillo, I understand why he's a favorite. I agree that he should be the favorite. But I actually think that Gavin Tucker has the better skills. I think he's the better striker. I like his kicks. I like his movement around the ring. Kind of has a Frankie Edgar type of approach. He likes to move around the ring. He'll clinch. He'll get some takedowns. I know a lot of people are going with Billy Q, and I totally get it. I think this is a real 50-50 fight. But I'm going to go with the underdog. I'm going to take the underdog. I like Gavin Tucker. I think he's the better striker. The only issue I have with Tucker is obviously his cardio dumping. But his last couple of fights, he's gone deeper into fights, and I haven't seen any cardio dumping, and he has wrestled in those fights. So it seems like he kind of fixed some of that. That being said, I think Tucker's the better fighter. I give Quarantillo that cardio, that relentlessness. But I'm going to go with the better fighter on this one. I'm going to take Gavin Tucker. Take the underdog.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. I agree with everything that you're saying, and I agree with not necessarily who you're picking as the winner, but the reason why he would win. I do think Gavin Tucker is the better fighter. I do think Billy Quarantillo will be pushing the pace. What I'm banking on at this point, and again, this is a true 50-50 fight, and be very careful if you're betting on this one. What I'm betting on is the thing that you're necessarily not betting on, which is that pace that Billy Quarantillo pushes. I think it might be too much for Gavin Tucker, not in terms of him not being able to handle it, but Billy Quarantillo has this pace that looks good in the eyes of the judges. And again, I always have to think about, who do I think the UFC would want to win? I think they're happy with either of these guys, but I can see them making a case for Billy Quarantillo. And that pace that he pushes, I think it kind of serves well in the eyes of the judges at this stage in UFC. So again, I mean, this is true 50-50, but I'm going to slightly pick Billy Quarantillo on this one. So we have our first split decision here of our event here. So why not? Let's move on now to the second last fight of the prelims. This is a really good fight. I mean, this is a fight that could headline a lower level card in the UFC. We have Renato Moicano versus Rafael Fiziev. Really, really, really good fight here. First of all, two very talented fighters. When we think about Fiziev, I like what I see from him. I know we were watching his last fight versus Jacasey. I think I slightly leaned on the side of Jacasey in that one. But at the time I was looking at Fiziev, I was like, wow, this guy's really good. Really good MMA stand-up, really good boxing. We know that he has really good Thai kickboxing. I mean, he's been in a number of Muay Thai fights at the highest level. A very powerful leg kick to anywhere, whether it's to the head, to the body, to the leg, doesn't really matter. Great head movement and a really good combination striker as well. And I like his ground game. I like his ground game. I think he has a good top position. I think there's some activity there, repositioning, really showing that, of course, it won't happen versus Moicano, maybe, but, he can definitely show his dominance on top versus certain opponents. When I think about Moicano, I think, a very well-rounded fighter, pretty decent hands, not the best hands in my opinion, but decent hands, has pretty good kicks. Again, a lot of calf kick usage as well. Just watch that fight versus Cater to see what happened in that one. Pretty good counter striker as well. And, obviously a grappler and has some decent takedowns to his game. The thing that I've noticed from Moicano is in his last two losses, I mean, they've come from fighters who have the advantage of the feet. And they've also been via TKO. And I think that's ultimately what's going to be the difference here. Not to call Fiziev on a TKO, but I do think Fiziev with the stand-up advantage is, we've already sort of seen the blueprint to path to victory in terms of how to beat Moicano, at least based on his last two fights, or last two losses, I should say. And I think, the striking speed is also going to make a pretty big difference here. I see Fiziev winning, again, not comfortably per se, but I do see Fiziev winning perhaps a unanimous decision here.
Yeah, it's a good fight. Moicano, we know what we're getting from Moicano. Really good jiu-jitsu. He has good leg kicks. He has obviously the tougher competition. Fiziev hasn't fought that many fights. So Moicano definitely could win this fight. Moicano beat Calvin Kattar, who Calvin Kattar is going to be fighting Max Holloway pretty soon. So Calvin Kattar obviously is a really, really good fighter, like a top 5 type of fighter. And he beat him with kicks, with his strikes. He beat Swanson, made him look bad there. He lost to Aldo. I actually had Moicano that night, and Aldo surprised me.
Yeah, he came out of nowhere with that fight.
Yeah, so in this fight, the thing is, for Moicano to win, he needs to get this fight to the ground. Like, if you click on Fiziev, are you on his page?
Yep.
Okay, now click on his team affiliation, where it says affiliation.
Tiger Muay Thai.
Okay, now what's his position? Like, they're not even putting him with the fighters. They're putting him with the staff.
Yeah, he's a striking coach.
He's a striking coach of Tiger Muay Thai. So, like, if you just go down that list of fighters, and like, you know what I mean, like Peter Yan, Nordine Taleb, like, these are all crazy he's a striking coach. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Moicano needs to get this to the ground. Now, his wrestling, we're looking at his wrestling is not. It's there. It can get people down. He's good with little trips here and there. But Fiziev has strong hips, and he has shown that he can give takedowns, and he has shown that he can defend takedowns. So in this fight, Fiziev is a strong pick for me, and I think the odds are fair. I like the odds that they're giving us. So I'm going to take Fiziev. This is a confident pick for me.
I agree.
I like Fiziev to get this done because Moicano got to get this to the ground, and that's not going to be easy. If he doesn't get this, he's gonna get pieced up.
I agree.
His legs are chopped. So,
yeah, fair odds, but a very, good set of odds for, even a straight up bet on Fiziev. So, definitely a confident pick there. I very much agree with that. Let's move on to the final fight of our prelims. We have Cub Swanson versus Daniel Pineda. We spoke about this fight as soon as it was announced last week, and I don't know what direction you've gone in since, but if you're staying in the same direction, we might be thinking the same thing on this fight. We know Cub Swanson. I mean, what can we not say about Cub Swanson at this point? Pretty complete fighter. Southpaw, switch stance, good movement around the ring, good MMA striking, good counter puncher. He hits and moves, controls the pace at times, definitely throws combos at different angles. BJJ black belt, although I haven't really seen that used or tested much. We saw that a bit against Shane Burgos in the third round. Burgos couldn't really control him, and Burgos was the bigger fighter. So that maybe speaks to some of Swanson's grappling and clinch ability. And we saw against, again, Moicano, he got choked out, right? Speaking to that fight, or speaking to that fight that we were just talking about. He did show some defensive ground game in that fight, but Moicano was just way too much and had him hurt at that time. What I ask myself with Cub Swanson at this point in his career, and I'm basing this off of his last fight, is cardio starting to become an issue. He slowed down about a round and a half into his last fight. And in my opinion, that wasn't a frantic pace at all. I don't even quite remember who that fight was against. Let's just take a look here. Because go back and look at that fight for anyone that wants to bet on Cub Swanson here. Just be very weary of that cardio. Again, we saw that against Kron Gracie. He won that fight, but really slowed down, and that wasn't even much of a pace there. Again, could be a sign of his age, but he's facing Daniel Pineda, who's not much younger in his own right. With Pineda, what I saw from him was I saw a pretty relaxed stand-up. A lot of use of the calf kick. I like his boxing. I like his combinations. And I do like his ground game, or I do trust his ground game, maybe more than Swanson's at this point. He beat Herbert Burns, and that kind of is self-explanatory. That fight went to the ground a number of times. And he was also in bottom position in that fight, worked his way into a favorable position, got on top, and then ended up, I think, doing some elbows to end the fight, if I'm not mistaken. But I've seen him prone to keeping guys, keeping him up, I should say, against the cage with that clinch. We know that style in the UFC is a round stealer at times. So that's something that you want to be very careful about as well, because we have seen Cub Swanson do that type of approach, especially later on in his career. Again, two older guys, although I will say Pineda maybe is the quote-unquote fresher face in the UFC. Coming back after being in the UFC a number of years ago. Two guys with double-digit losses on their at this stage of their career. That's always something that you want to be wary of as well. And what can I say? I think I just can't see myself betting on Cub Swanson at this stage of his career, right? I think Pineda, to me, just has to be the smarter bet. I feel like he maybe has a little bit more in the tank. And I feel, stylistically, there's not any one thing that either fighter does that the other doesn't. So I think we're just going to see, I think we're going to see a pretty close fight. It might be a split decision, or I can see Pineda, winning all three rounds. But it's going to be an interesting one. I think it's going to be a good fight as a fan. But if I'm thinking about from a betting perspective, close fight, but I am leaning on the side of Pineda.
I hear that. I get it. Cub Swanson, as you know, they're both out there in age. But Cub Swanson, let's really think about who he is. From the start of his career till now, he's been that fighter that moves around the ring, good striking. He has his jiu-jitsu, but he wants to box with these guys, use his speed, his footwork, in and out type of movements, and he's really good at that. He made a good career out of it. If someone can't grapple, he'll grapple with them, but mainly his approach has been using his reflexes, his boxing, kind of like a Masvidal, kind of like that kind of approach, right? So as you get older, just like in boxing, as you get older, you lose a lot of speed. that you may not notice, but it's not as fast as Cub was 5-10 years ago. So right there alone, both of them at this age, I believe that Pineda's fighting style adapts better for older fighters because Pineda, yeah, Cub I think he has a better striking, but I think Pineda can hang with him. I really think he can hang with them. But I think Pineda has the big edge on the ground. I think he has Cub gives up a lot of takedowns, and I think Pineda is gonna utilize the takedowns. Pineda could also hold him against the cage. He has more of a physical presence compared to Cub. So I could see him holding Cub in places, just holding him there, whether it's on the ground or against the cage. And I think he can win rounds that way. I don't think Cub will be able to come on. I mean, we'll be able to do good if Pineda gets a takedown. I think Pineda's going to get this to the ground. I think Pineda's a good pick. I agree with your pick. I like Pineda to win this fight. He has a better style at this age. And yeah, looking at the weight, he looked ready. So I'm going to take Pineda here. And another thing you got to factor in, Pineda's been on a roll.
Yes.
Okay. So some people may not know some of these names, but in the PFL, Movlid Kabulaev, that guy, he's been throwing like he has a ridiculous highlights, like these flying knees. He won that fight, okay? So that's the first fight he won. Jeremy Kennedy's a beast right now in Bellator. He's doing really well. He won that fight, okay? And Herbert Burns, he beat Ray Trillo. So he's on a good streak right now. Well, Cub Swanson, yeah, he just beat the Kron Gracie, but before that he lost 4 in a row, right? So yeah, so I'm gonna go with Pineda. I'm with you on that one. You should get this done.
Okay. And for anyone that, for the viewers that are seeing no contest on this page, I don't know what happened to Pineda that ruled it a no contest, but as you mentioned, these are 2 no contests that he did win at the time. So when we're thinking about his winning streak, I mean, we're talking 7 fights in a row. So, coming in with the steam, has a path to victory in terms of the ground, can match up with the feet, and probably has a on feet style that's better at this age. I do think it's a pretty good bet. Let's take that then straight to Vegas and let's see, what picks we like on the prelims. I mean, if we are thinking Fiziev and Pineda, that's a pretty healthy 2-fight parlay if we are looking at both of those. Are there any other prelim fights that you're considering?
Prelim fights, I'm considering. I like Fiziev.
Yeah.
Fiziev, I like Fiziev. So I'd look at that as a gambler. I'd be looking at that fight.
Definitely. That would probably be, and I agree with that. I think that would probably be maybe just the one fight that I look at. If you put $100 on that, you get a profit of $66, almost $67. And I mean, it's just one fight to worry about, right? So, definitely, I think there's a strong pick there with Fiziev. Other fights that you possibly want to look at, again, Hooper and Torres are very questionable at those odds. They technically should win those fights. So keep that in mind as well if you are willing to,
What is the Quarantillo Gavin over rounds? What is that looking like?
On the over? Let's take a look here.
Quarantillo Gavin, yeah, look at that one. That's a fight I wouldn't really want to bet money line, like one versus the other, but I definitely look at the round totals. Or
yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that can be considered as well, right? I mean, if you think it's going to go to decision, you get a pretty solid payout on that as well, adding it maybe to a parlay. But I mean, that one's a little tough in terms of trying to call that. But I mean, again, I think Fiziev is probably the pick of the underdog card. Pretty decent underdog card that we have for us. Is going to be pretty enjoyable. And we will be back with another one for UFC 256 Figueiredo versus Moreno. Main card picks coming up next.
Let's do it.